This is the 1996 Olympic Finals in the 2,000 meter single scull. Here's our guest, Xeno Muller, the one and only. He was in third place as they entered the last 500 meters. Here he is in the boat in some really early GoPro footage. Look at that form. Look at him go. Why did it take so long to get this graphic up? That was 200 meters ago. Look, he's taking the lead. Come on, Xeno, you can do this. Okay, I don't want to give any spoilers as to what happens, but join us for our conversation and you'll find out. Hi there, welcome to another episode of At the Catch. This week I'm happy to have Xeno Muller as our guest. Xeno's coming to us from sunny Southern California, where it must be an Arctic blast because he's wearing a jacket.
I want to be nice, warm, and cozy to be able to talk to you.
Very good, very good. For those of you who don't know Xeno, Xeno's got a long history of rowing. He'll tell you all about it in a few moments, but he's got exactly 2 more Olympic medals than me. Here's the funny story about Xeno. I tell people today, I said, well, Xeno's my coach. Xeno taught me how to row. And they go, wow, where'd you row? Where'd you race collegiately? Yada, yada, yada. I said, no, not exactly. And as the story goes, I bought a water rower back in 2017, and it was the Xeno model, the Xeno signature model. And it came with a series of videos. And I watched all those videos and they literally taught me how to row. And it was really funny that even my kids, when they were 8, 9 at the time, they knew when they heard Xeno's voice to leave daddy alone. So they've known who you are, it's
Forever.
pretty funny. They've grown up with Xeno. So you literally did teach me how to row. And that's because people ask me that all the time. How'd you learn to row? It's like, well, Xeno got me into it. I watched those videos. I had my favorites. The Hour of Power was legendary.
Yeah.
And I learned, I said, you just learn by imitation. I imitated Xeno. It's kind of funny. People say, well, how did you go from nothing to where you are now? I said, well,
Now,
sincere form of flattery.
I have a question for you. The Hour of Power would be a nightmare for someone. If someone were told, hey, row for an hour, they would get bored out of their minds after 3 minutes. What is it? What is it? I have an idea, right? When you followed that Hour of Power, why were you able to stay an hour on the earth? What was it that I was doing that kept you on the earth?
Well,
or water rower, whatever it is. I do both.
My background is a cyclist, so we're 5 hours is nothing for a ride. So I longed for a long endurance workout, and so actually anything under 45 minutes of your workouts, I hardly ever did, or I'd double them up and do a couple of them. Yeah. And I just liked, the Hour of Power was pyramids, and it was suffering. And it was fun that when, the first time I did it, you're up there talking and leading and sweating, and your shirt would change colors throughout the hour. Right. And then, occasionally you would say, this is my pace, this is my stroke rate, this is how many meters I did. And at first, you do 16,000 meters,
right?
And I do 15.
Right.
And then, I would mimic you stroke for stroke.
Right.
And eventually the power goes up, and then, wow, now I'm in the ballpark.
Right.
So with that being said, you're still talking and leading a class. So you got a little extra work to do.
I really enjoy talking while I row. And it's a funny thing about people who do row in rowing clubs is that the first thing everyone's told is quiet in a boat and listen to the coxswain or not chatter because people end up not really focusing on the acceleration and the technique of the boat. Rowing, leading a workout, you have to entertain yourself. And when I entertain myself and I record it, I entertain everyone that follows the workout as well. And rowing in an eight at the university with the right coxswain, you are never completely in a quiet surround. The coxswain comments about how well the boat is running, how the blades fall in, or how long we keep the blades in the water to send the boat away. So there's a constant feedback that mirrors what you're trying to achieve. And it was the right coxswain. It's a very positive experience. So
Mhm.
that's what I enjoy about these workouts. And there are mornings I do these workouts and I'm just literally coming out of bed. I'm thinking, okay, it's my routine, let's do it. And the right warm up gets going and off we are. And so I'm really
Perfect.
happy that you found me in 2017 because look, now we're going to be rowing for the rest of our lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so we kinda jumped ahead there. Let's back it up for a second. And first of all, I have to say, we've talked a number of times over the years, and every time we talk, it's on a video chat.
Yeah.
I can't imagine talking to you where I couldn't see your face because you
Right.
are entertaining. So
Right.
I thought to myself, gosh, who would be a great guest on the podcast? I don't know, Zeno.
Yeah.
Every phone call we've had could have been a podcast.
Right. Right. Right.
So let's back up and let you introduce yourself and tell these people who you are and just tell us your background of rowing.
Okay. In a nutshell, started rowing at 13 in France. My dad worked for a US company, had moved us around in Europe. I ended up having to learn different languages. When my parents heard that I started rowing, they really liked it because up until that point, I'd wanted to become a tennis player, but I wanted to smash the tennis ball so hard that the tennis courts were too short. And finding rowing, I mean, at the beginning, you can't go hard enough in rowing until someone really tells you how to row. And okay, look, if you want to be really efficient, you have to kind of channel your energy. And and it has been amazing ever since. I think the luckiest part of me was rowing was the support of my family, the people involved in the rowing club. Early on, we had access to an Olympic coach who trained a U.S. women's single scull called Ann Martin at the 1988 Olympics. And that was also when I first held a silver medal of the Olympics in my hand, shortly after she had won it, the Korea Olympics in 1988. So when I turned 16, my dad said, "Hey, you're big and strong, and you really enjoy rowing. You don't have the French passport, and you can only compete nationally or internationally with the country of origin, which is Switzerland." And Switzerland was a 5.5 hour, 6 hour drive from where we lived in France in Fontainebleau, 50 minutes south of Paris. I learned to row on the River Seine,
Mhm.
and he took me to Switzerland on certain weekends where the national team would meet up. And I think that the main chapter ended up being me joining a rowing club in Zurich, where they were pretty serious about their rowing, and the club is called the Grasshopper Club. I remember the very first meeting was three coaches in a special area of this older boathouse on Lake Zurich. And they asked me, "So, what's your story?" Because they want to know who they're going to accept into their club. So every new member has a talk. And they asked me, "So what are your aspirations in rowing?" And I said, "I want to become a world champion and Olympic gold medalist."
Simple.
And that was ingrained me. When I was playing tennis, I wanted to win the Grand Slam. On the wall of my bedroom when I was started working out at age 11 and a half, I think for that Christmas, when I turned 11 and a half, my dad and mom bought me a funny looking rowing machine with a resistance plate on the sides, and I would row it in the mornings between 6:30 and 7 a.m. without knowing rowing at all, right? I have no idea what my style was when I was rowing. That's a very good question. I never thought about that. What was my technique like then? And they got me a punching with boxing glove. So that was that was 6:30 to 7. Why? Because my dad said, listen, Zeno, you have to move your shoulders outward so you're nice and square with your shoulders because you want to be strong. And so that that upbringing of pushing and trying to be the best in whatever you are going to be, whether it's, and I will always quote my mom, even if you're a toilet cleaner, be the best toilet cleaner because that's going to make your life better. And so with that attitude, I went to this club in Switzerland, Grasshopper Club, and that's why I said this is what I want to become. And 15 minutes after the completion of this question and answer, they took me down to the boathouse where the ergs were, and they pitted me against some older juniors and some senior Bs, okay, under 23s. And and I think I beat them all. And and then he started thinking, holy cow, that was that first day. I think had the coaching been left at that, I still wouldn't have won at the Olympics. The key moment ended up being when the Swiss national team coach, a New Zealander, Harry Mann, found me on the lake in my single scull with the Grasshopper Club during an Easter training camp in the middle of Switzerland. Beautiful Easter morning, you would hear the bells from each little town across the big lake.
Mhm.
Hear 'em, it was like I mean, it was enchanting now that I think back about it. And far away was that, coaching launch of the national team coach rowing some other boat, and then all of a sudden, about maybe, half a mile away, I see that coaching launch slowly coming towards me. Somehow somehow, I must have caught his attention. And Harry and that was the first day I really worked with Harry Mann. And Harry taught me 98% of what I teach people today.
Mhm.
And he's the reason why I became as fast as I became. He's the reason why some of the other international coaches in this world who are alive today do an excellent job. And you can recognize their minimalistic rowing technique simply by walking up and down a race course. And you say, "Oh, you wipe your eyes and you say, is it really possible?" Because rowing efficiently, very non-complicated stroke. Yet for some reason, a whole bunch of people use too much of something in order to make the boat slower, I would say, not faster. And so this transition of coaching was just luck. I was lucky that I had these coaches. I was really grateful that my parents supported me. So this leads me down getting recruited to Brown University as a rower. Um, I won indoor rowing world championships as a junior. I won a bronze medal in the single scull as a junior. I have 3 silver medals at the world championship in the single scull, a gold and a silver at the Olympics, and I had the fastest ever recorded 2,000-meter time. And to this day, I think I'm one of 5 people who has rowed under 640 for 2,000 meters on the water. Um, a trivia that pretty much no one knows except me and maybe one other person,
Well,
is
now
that
doesn't know.
now more people will know it. To this day, I'm the fastest ever final 500-meter sprint, split. 1:36, 56 is, I think, my sprinting time to win the Olympic gold medal. And to this day, I don't believe any recorded lost 500 meters that fast. So yay, I still am somewhat relevant. Um, but then fast forward to quitting competition, I thought, all right, I'm going to how what the heck am I going to do? I live in the United States because I never went back to Europe. What am I going to do now that I'm done competing? Because I Red Bull was a sponsor of mine. At the end, it was also Victorinox and Red Bull together. So I was able to be a somewhat professional athlete with family. By the time I competed at my third Olympics, we had two children. Then the third one arrived, Christopher, in 2001, and those were truly my last world championship. So what was I gonna do, right? So we started in the rowing studio here in Costa Mesa, called the Iron Oarsman in 2003. Um, Took out the line of credit on the house and bought a whole bunch of ergs and the PA system and mirrors, and from scratch we started. Uh, thinking back, I mean, it's very risky, right? 'Cause, I mean, it takes a certain type of person to join a group class
Mhm.
to row. What what helped me there was teaching people who've never rowed before how to do it. And it was 7, 8 years of doing that that made me capable of talking about rowing very fluidly to a whole bunch of different set of ears to make them understand what the most efficient way is to row. And what's interesting, when the real estate crash happened in around 2008, 2009, people couldn't afford being members anymore, and I had to switch gears. But luckily, I had a friend who said, "Zena, look, you're really good at making people really fast. It's one thing that you are able to entertain people, to break a sweat." I always said, "Hey, sweaty shirt and a smile from earlobe to earlobe. That's what we're striving for, and we're going to row until we're 300 years young." That was, and to this day, that I think this way. I want to live until I'm 300 years young. But when the people couldn't pay for it anymore, I had to switch gears, and it was luckily the bandwidth on the internet was up to speed. Had this
Mhm.
been in 2003 or 2004, I don't know what would have happened. So the timing of it all, I was extremely lucky, extremely grateful. So now I'm able to teach people online in real time, recording Zoom and and talking about the analogies of what it feels like to row on the water and how it feels when you find a state of flow when you're on the rowing machine. And to cap it off, my little introduction here, um, is that I always joke that anyone I coach, they're my psychotherapist. I talk about rowing nonstop, right? And my family, therefore, is really healthy. So I can unload every bit of motivation that I have in my brain onto people who signed up to get it, because my family didn't sign up to get all my pussy. So, so, so it's all good. It's all good. Okay, your turn.
So your kids are very motivated when it comes to taking out the track. They know.
Oh man. Side note: none row. Well, the youngest one rows because I pay him a couple dollars a 1,000 meters when he rows.
Okay.
Except that young one has now grown so fast that I'm not the biggest, tallest anymore in this family, which of course makes my agreement of $2 a 1,000 meters getting more and more and more expensive.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's probably the best gamble that I've taken because he's so big. I think he's 6'5". He's out there on the water rower making money. He's moving his body, building mitochondria in his muscle cells. That's the best money spent. So we have a musician, we have an artist, we have a singer and a scientist. It's interesting. And my wife wrote. My wife wrote, guys. Okay, why am I in Newport Beach, Costa Mesa? Because I needed to find a place to train for the 1996 Olympics. I was at Brown in Providence, Rhode Island. I I meet my boat builder in Switzerland who has been building my single sculls for years. I said, "Hey, should I go down to Florida?" And he said, "No, no, no. Don't go to Florida. The weather is not good. Go to Newport Beach." And then he said to me to follow him into his office, and he showed me a poster of an aerial view of the Newport Beach harbor. And he said, "Look, you can row around Lido Island and Balboa Island, and then back there, far in the Anaheim. Anaheim is huge, and there's Disneyland as well." And I said, "Say no more." So I packed up the boats and drove across the country with a friend of mine from Brown. And this is where I met my wife. I met my wife at the Newport Aquatic Center in April of 1996, and we got married in September of 1996. So, well, I mean, and here we are, still married, with 4 kids, quadrillion amount of pets, and and that's what life is. And the other day, um, my role models, because I was gonna say who was on my wall when I was growing up, kid, rowing. I had Arnold Schwarzenegger on my wall. I had, Rambo First Blood on my wall, and these guys were just Jack. And listening to the audible book of Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Useful Tools or whatever he named his book, he said, "One of the things is love your fate, because your fate is your life. Amor fati," or something like that. And I heard that just the other day, and I said, "Holy cow, that is exactly how I live." I mean, you live your life and you try to make the best out. And when I row and I'm tired in the morning, but I have everyone there with me, I I spring to life. Okay, what a wonderful opportunity to be able to bring joy that in turn brings me joy. And one final thing, I outlived my dad 2 years ago. He passed away of a liver cancer at age 49. The weirdest thing to suddenly outlive your father. And what's interesting about that, purely from a motivational point of view and how to enjoy life, is that I didn't quite realize. I said, "A, I'm going to outlive my dad." Well, but what really broke the waterworks on me when I was talking to a therapist online, um, is when I was able to describe that I was going to not just live days for me, but I'm also going to live days for the days that he could not live himself. Holy cow. That was like, oh my gosh, it was just amazing. So this is what you have coming from me as someone you like to ask questions, or if you follow me on the rowing machine. That's the gear. That is the gear I'm in. Um, by default, which of course, when the family says, "Okay, let's just calm down," sometimes it's really hard for me to do
Never a dull moment with a
that.
Xeno client
No, no,
or conversation.
no.
So, one thing I love about your your style is you just love rowing. It doesn't matter where you do it, doesn't matter what machine you're on, you're doing it, you're making yourself better. Um, that's the whole point. What do you think about rowing having gone mainstream? I mean, more so than 15 years ago. I mean, you've got Orange Theory Fitness and Row House, a number of franchises that promote rowing. Um, they're not purist rowing, and depending on where you go and what class you
Right.
go, with Orange Theory does a bunch of intervals and stuff. But um, what do you think about this?
First of all, that the term rowing is now something that's more commonly used in people's dialogue is huge. That's big.
Mhm.
Anecdotally, you think of if you told someone about rowing, they would go like this, right? They would think it's a kayak. But now more people is, oh yeah, rowing, the rowing machine. So that's really good. I mean, that this is important for the for the life of the sport. But I also think because rowing is gentle on the joints, blah 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 blah, people will have a better quality of life for it.
Mhm.
When it comes down to purists, you think I'm a purist. I'm not going to allow anyone to row any differently than what I'm telling them how to row. It's not the case. This is how I say it, right? If it doesn't injure you, it's an exercise you can
Mhm.
do, okay? Because we need to move the body. Now, if you do exercise because you really want to feel the pain, get rid of some anger, or you really want to unload a lot of power, then you say, okay, wait. You've got to make sure that the muscles are properly fired at the right time, that you don't use your back in a way that your back is kinked, right? If you push on the legs and the bottom of your back points to the bow, whereas the top of the back points to stern, all of a sudden you have this inflection point in the back. Well, bloody heck, that's going to hurt eventually if you're psychotic enough. But if you're not psychotic, if you kind of row along, putter along, and one part of your spine points one direction, the other, nothing's going to happen, right? And so, and that's what I remind everyone when I lead workouts is, hey, just know that I will remind you of what I was taught in the book and why we do what we. But don't don't freak out whether you look like it or not. It's just so that you know what to strive for. And um, I have I have these different exercises where you don't put both feet on the footboard, where you don't hold the handle with both hands, just to show the path of least resistance when it comes to applying power to the footboard. And that's a really fun way to show how the little muscles can wait before the larger muscle groups have completed what they're supposed to do.
Mhm.
And with the right wording, you can't unsee what you hear, right? This is the really interesting part is that people can start to visualize the stroke with the right verbal description. And then,
Mhm.
well, and then they have a mirror, then it all clicks together, right? It's one thing to watch someone say, okay, this is how you do it, but the description has to be there. And then if they have their own feedback, then it's huge, right? Then all of a sudden, it's, oh my gosh, I need to work on the flexibility of my hamstrings, or if I can't do that yet, I'm going to put the foot down on the ground and be able to hinge better at the hip joint just because one foot's on the ground. You know, all that was a smile and talk. So there you go.
Mhm. Well, I heard a quote. I been racking my brain trying to see where I heard it from, but it said something about, at the world championships, there's 19 medals awarded. And those 19 medals are awarded to, well, there's singles, doubles, quads, but every one of those is coached by someone else, and they all have different technique. And there's no one correct technique. And it's up to the coach to take the strengths from everyone and accentuate those and make them as fast as possible. So Like if you read this book, and I'm sure you're familiar with this,
Hmm.
written by a Russian, and it's like astrophysics about rowing.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
if you can make it through it, good for you.
It's
But
Kleshnev. It's a Klesh. Who's the author on this one?
Koleshev,
Kleshnev?
yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's got more math in there than
Right.
my kid's calculus book.
Right.
Um, so there's a lot of ways to put out power, and there's no. I just love the fact that I love to hate it when you see someone online say, "Hey, look at my stroke. What am I doing wrong?" And then it's the gallery comes and everyone's got an opinion on what you're doing right, wrong, change this, start over.
I'm gonna share a little something small. So we have a few different rowing machines, and you can adjust you can adjust your foot height.
Mhm,
And without giving out any secret, is a lot of rowers do not think that putting the foot in the same spot as everyone else might not fit their body composition or body structure or the measurements of their own body. And I'll leave it at that. Seems that thinking slightly outside of the box is something that may only be really possible for someone who knows the sport really well and has felt that their life depends on it. So that would be me. But then you
mhm,
have others who may look at the sport in a very scientific way. So what's interesting about Kleshnev is that he there are degrees, there is power per stroke, how many strokes you take in order to finish the distance you want. And he gives a rigging sheet. The
mhm,
part of that book helps you to figure out the rigging on the boat. And those are two extremes, right? What makes the two together is how you artfully, with the rower in front of you, translate that information in something that the rower can do instinctively over and over and over with a positive attitude. So when the going gets tough and huge amount of self-doubt sinks in, is then able to find the most the lowest possible successful the lowest possible successful way of producing power needed to win a race. You mentioned these 19 medals at the World Championship earlier. A very cynical way of telling that whoever wins, they don't win because they're they win because other people were not as good, or you only beat the people who whose technique is inferior. Okay, so whoever wins is not the absolute. The team that wins is they're not winning because have the best stroke. It's because the people who lost are less efficient, or maybe with worse technique or less power. So that's something to consider. And this, I mean, we're going down the technical rabbit hole when it comes to
mhm,
looking at the World Championship or the Olympics. Is why do coaches all of a sudden hail someone as a technical model simply because they won the Olympics? Now, there's a guy from Greece who is 6'1", who won the world championship at the Tokyo Olympics in some real crappy water. He won because he was technically the absolute best. He was
Mm.
super fit, but he was the best. Now, the German guy was struggling with the water. It's huge. And if that water is flat, he's going to win because he has a certain amount of capability. Now, if he were to row full slide and were rigged the way Kleshnev would want him to be rigged, then good night. I mean, then we really are going to have someone who then finally breaks 6 minutes and 30 seconds for 2,000 meters. Because here I am at 6'3", 220 pounds, and I rode my fastest race was I think 6:37. And then all of a sudden you have someone who's 6'8", who weighs maybe 97 kilograms, 3 kilograms less than me,
Mhm.
and rows a longer stroke. On paper, that guy should blow my doors off if the technique is right. Okay,
Mm.
tell me what other questions you have.
Well, one thing I wanna talk about is as we head into this holiday season, there's a big movie coming out, and we're gonna have a lot of new rowers.
Yeah,
Boys in the Boat coming out. I think Christmas Day it's gonna be released. It's a great story.
yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing the movie, and we're gonna see a lot more people that are gonna dip their toes in rowing, which is great.
yeah, yeah. You know, small side note, Steve Gladstone was my coach at Brown University. He ended up coaching Cal. He was coach at Harvard. He ended up coaching Yale. He's the most successful collegiate rower. He now retired. But I got a phone call from him and said, okay, so, they asked, he was asked if he could become the director of rowing for that movie. And he said he doesn't have the time, right? But to ring up Xeno. And so I got a phone call from Grant Heslov, who is the right hand of George Clooney. And I got to talk to Grant Heslov and to his line manager or whoever does the hiring. Had that movie been filmed in the United States, I would have had a shot at being I
Technical
don't know,
consultant or
the rowing something. Um, Let me put it this way. Sure, that would have been an amazing opportunity. But if we go down the technical bloody rabbit hole, it would be terrifying as well
mhm.
because my name would be behind how these actors would be rowing. And I've had a gleeful joy tearing apart the rowing styles of people in movies. You know who wrote the best out of all the true no CGI faces? Because in the network or that movie about Zuckerberg, they superimposed some faces, so that's why the rowing looked pretty good.
Mhm.
But there's one actress that rowed really well, and that is um oh, she won so many Academy Awards. Uh, she became a wild water guide down the Colorado River with her husband and 2 kids. That's in the movie. Maybe it's River Wild. Oh my goodness, what is her name? She did the movie with Clint Eastwood, The Bridges Over Madison. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Oh my gosh, some people are gonna scream when they watch this right now. Um, oh, okay. She's the one who wrote the best. Okay. Bridges, Clint Eastwood, she won 3 or 4 Academy Awards. Brian, terrible
I'm
at
looking
ac
it up.
yeah, not are you looking it up right now?
Looking it
Because
up,
she
Meryl
rose on
Streep.
the Meryl Streep.
Yes, Meryl Streep.
Meryl Meryl Streep rode the single scull on the Charles on that movie River Wild or something, and guess what? She did a really good job. So Academy Award for the
Alright.
actor who no, do you know that? Have you seen that, sequence?
I have
It's
not.
it's good, it's good. It's really good. I can't believe someone taught her well. I wonder who taught her. That would be kind of fun to know who taught her. Okay, um,
I'll put
sorry
some
about
notes below and see if we can find that information
yeah,
out.
well, I'm glad I'm in a way, I'm glad I was not involved, but at the same time I would have been fun being involved because it's
Mhm.
like once every 100 years that they're going to do a movie about rowing.
Sure.
Unless they do a movie about individuals like me, but I don't see that happening. Or maybe I need to go really nuts and then maybe say, "Oh, what else have you done in your life?"
Well, speaking of movies, one thing I'm gonna put in the comments of this video is the clip of you in the Olympics in '96. Uh, it's great to see that. The one where you narrate is fantastic just because, here's your perspective
Right, right,
and, you know, well,
right.
I'm not gonna don't be a spoiler other than you win, but how you win is what's impressive.
Uh, right,
So,
right.
I'll put that down below. Um,
And what's interesting is my dad had passed away 4 years earlier. Came to the '92 Olympics. I failed to make the finals by half a boat length as a 19-year-old, and then I was, whisked away in a way to give a live interview to Swiss TV. And in Switzerland, you don't announce what you really want to do because that's Switzerland. Um, but I did. I said, it's really crap that I did not make the finals here. I had the ability to win a bronze medal. And it's going to be much better to win the Olympic gold medal 4 years later in Atlanta. Going to be the place. I got a lot of flack for that. And but it happened.
but tell us about what you're doing now. I mean, you're coaching high school and collegiate athletes and or future Olympians.
So to get into school, the top rowing program, you have to hit a certain speed on the concept to rowing. I rowed water rower because at one point I wanted to have a closer connection with the manufacturer. And I love it. It's quiet, the water, etc. You know it. But for the high school kids, they pretty much all have their own rowing machine. And the erg score for 2,000 meters is what gets them recruited. And I call the erg score the SAT of rowing.
Yeah.
And I don't realize the value that I bring, or I didn't realize the value that I bring until I was told by my friend Tyler in Chicago, who helped me figure out my where I am important, right? Because that's important. You need to know where you're valued. Is I bring such relief to families whose kid is trying to get faster on a rowing machine that the only reward comes if you push yourself to the absolute most miserable feeling of physical limit. And they've been doing that before they get to see me. They've been doing this and started to hate doing 2,000-meter pieces because they can't get past that physical plateau.
Mhm.
And so what they realize is that if they were to break through the plateau, there's this dream of rowing at an institution where there's history of rowing, and the people that you meet in those rowing programs may not become your friends for life, but you will always be able to draw from them if you were to ask them, "Hey, I need some help with something." You have these unbelievably determined individuals who were selected by that process of pushing oneself to the absolute limit. I mean, it is psychotic. When you think about it, there are few sports where the entire body wants to not do it. I mean, everything says, why am I doing this? So here I come into a situation like this with kids who are juniors or seniors where there's a lot of stress. But very quickly within the first month, they drop 10 seconds. Why? Because the lowest hanging fruit is
Mhm.
technique. I mean, it's so beautiful. It drives me nuts, right? But the other thing that's really interesting is the parents who find me when their kid is sophomore or even freshman. The the ability to mold someone to learn how to self-coach by seeing themselves in the mirror, sure, hearing my words, the sky's the limit. That's that's what's amazing because the recruiting parameters, they are set at a certain level because of the quality of coaching. Now, if everyone were coached the way I would coach, these levels of recruiting would be so much faster,
Hmm.
which keeps the door open to the ability for me to help these kids get recruited because what are we doing? We are trying to get them in through the level that has been established with the quality of coaching across the board. So keep holding them above that is something that comes very naturally to me. Now, if those levels were even higher, it would be a lot harder for me to do that.
Hmm.
But still, who else is out there doing it? So, the way the way you and I are talking and and sharing emotion and idea how to protocols. I mean, the fact that we are not sitting face to face here in person makes no difference. And and the thing is, when I need someone physically there to help a rower understand a certain position, I say, "Hey, who else is in your house? Can you go grab them?" Then they give them one ear pod into one ear, and then I say hello to that other person, say, "Okay, grab their wrist or grab their shoulder, hold their knee down." And comes comes really a family affair like that. So, and again, I really enjoy telling you this. I can really feel that my entire body wants to share that with you. Um, and that's how I don't know, that's how I live.
Well, I know that you've made a huge impact on my rowing. I mean, those kids you work with, all the people you've worked
Yep.
with. I mean, great thanks.
And shout out to Chris. There's a
Yeah,
fellow
yeah,
named
Chris.
Chris. We won't say his last name because after all, we don't wanna throw him under the bus. But hello, Chris. You did a really good job.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Dino, I know this won't be our last conversation. We'll have to do this again, discuss some
Shoot.
other interesting issues about
Yeah.
rowing, and it'll be
Bring him
fantastic.
up.
Always
Bring
a
him up.
pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Sounds
All
good.
right. Well, that's it for this episode of At the Catch. See you next time. Bye bye.
Yeah. Bye. Bye.